Yes, I'll move forward and call the public service meeting to order, please. We do have minutes to approve from last year's meeting. If I could get approval of those minutes, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of the minutes, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. And all members are present. We do have 3 items that we read in and referred. I'll go ahead and read those in real quick. Our number 1 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into the private developer agreement between Copley Fairlawn City School District and the City of Akron to construct sanitary sewer improvements for Copley High School and declare an emergency. And I do see we have our Service Director, Chris Luddle, with us. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of committee. Yes, this is sanitary sewer that the private contractor is going to work with the school. So they are going to award this contract. This legislation for $20,000 will allow them to pay us for inspection fees. So they will install about 800 feet of 12-inch sanitary from the existing manhole, which is parallel to I-77, Interstate 21. They'll extend it to the north, right at the southwest corner of Copley's property, where they have a small package plant, sewage package plant. So this new sewer that they will tie into will let them abandon that package plant. Then everything from starting at the facility, the football facility, and the whole school will go to this new sewer manhole and then flow to us. They will be billed like any other Copley customer. They are our current water customer, so it'll just be billed at that rate, our commercial rate in Copley, and by the usage of their water. So with that, we would, sir, like to suspend the rules. The contractor's ready to go on this one, please. But I will take any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Let's start with committee members of public service. We do have Councilman Hardy.
The high school's in the JED, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right,
You're
thank
welcome.
you. Anything else from committee members? Any other committee members in chambers? All right, with that, Mr. Luddle did say he would like suspension of the rules. Can I get that?
So move.
Second.
All in favor for suspension of the rules? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Moving on to our second piece, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts for construction management services for the Gorge Dam removal, bank stabilization, and declare an emergency. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of committee. Yes, this is the second thing that we've brought you in the Gorge Dam removal. So at the old power plant, which is located on Front Street, just down from Cauga Falls Avenue, is where EPA is going to manage all the sediment removal. So they will actually install a barge out onto the river, and then that's when they will start to, they will excavate all that sludge and they will bring it to this site, and then they will dewater it and they will mix it with a concrete type mix, and then it will be pumped all the way down to Peck Road. What this project is the construction management. We've already bid this project. Is they're going to have to remove the sheet pile wall along that border of that old power plant because it's starting to fail. So before we start to put all this weight on there, we're going to the contractor remove the sheet pile wall. They will rebuild that wall with stone and grade it back down. So when the sediment's removed and when the dam comes down, this will be a natural slope right down to the river.
All right, thank you. Committee members, any questions for Chris? Comments? Any other council members in chambers or online? Nothing. Okay, nobody? All right,
Consent's
Chris,
fine.
consent is okay? Can I have a motion for consent, please?
Motion for consent.
Second.
Second. All in favor for consent? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to our third piece, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to, or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for construction of West Bowery Street Bridge, to enter into related contracts for construction management services and declare an emergency. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this legislation will allow us to bid and award the replacement of the Bowery Street Bridge, which is just west of Main Street. by the new Bowery project on one side and PNC on the other. This bridge is beyond its useful life. We have tremendous amount of water leaking down into the deck and the walkway going into the new Bowery project. So this is long overdue. Engineering has secured funding, $5 million of bridge funds. They secured $1 million of OPWC. The private you see in there, that's the utility. So AT&T, AES, and First Energy have their conduits. Those will all be reimbursed to us on the work that has to be done by the contractor. So this project is fully designed. We will bid it this summer, but this project will not start conceivably till October. And the reason is because of what we call Lock 3.20 over there, our festivals, and with the marathon, obviously, we will not start this project of removing that bridge until after that happens. So with that, consent's fine, and I will take any questions.
All right, thank you, Chris. Committee members, any questions or comments for Chris? Councilman Hardy.
Just kudos to engineering on that bridge money in particular. Bridge money is hard to get.
Yep.
Getting $5 million for this is pretty spectacular.
Yes, I agree. Any other committee members? Council members online or in chambers? All right, you did say consent agenda. Can I have a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor for consent? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to our new list of legislation. Number 1, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with the Rulin Company for professional engineering services to provide construction management services for water capital projects and declare an emergency. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this is an ongoing project with Rulin. This is an extension to their project. They are inspecting our lead service replacement lines. With the influx of state money and ARPA money, there's over 1,000 residents that are getting upgraded and getting their lead services removed. Also, they are doing construction management services to 2 projects up at the water plant. One is we're replacing the pump station or booster station to the North Summit Supply, which sends water from our plant up to Twinsburg and obviously the Coke plant. And then the other project they're inspecting for is the caustic soda feed system up at the plant, which obviously controls our pH in our water. One thing that the new administration, and Mayor Malik has been very clear on this, is our policies on how we deal with these contracts, not only design, but the CM services. So we are putting together criteria, and we will bring another presentation to you on how this is done, how we rate these companies, and obviously how we score them. And it's not always on price, it's on their availability, it's on their location here in Akron. Obviously, that's very important to us. But we have always, with the Charter 56, I believe, we talked about that last year, that we are going to be very transparent on all these projects. Well, these contractors are actively working, so this is an extension to basically get us to June. So there may be a few more of these projects, and we can get into that as we award those design or construction management in the future, but we will have a full presentation for you. We're hoping in the first half of this year.
All right, thank you. Committee members, any questions or comments? All right, any other council members that are in chambers or online? I do see Councilwoman Omobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am happy to hear that, Mr. Lotto. What my question has to do with, as we start looking at these companies and assessing their availability, their capability of whatever we're going to do, hopefully we can look at minority providers and see what it is that they can do, either with some of these major projects or individually. Because I know that there are times when we have contractors and we come in and talk about the things that they're not doing well. But I know with all these providers in the city of Akron, we should be able to identify a number of minority providers, women, blacks, whatever, Asians, whatever you want to call the minority providers, and be able to identify projects that we can allow them to bid on or be allowed to get, because there has to be work in the city that they can do. And I'm very happy to hear that we're going to do something like this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else? All right, what's your pleasure on this one?
Consent's fine.
Consent's fine. Motion for consent, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor for consent agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, moving on to our second piece of the new agenda. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a consent agreement with the Ohio Director of Transportation for the signage replacement on various routes throughout the city of Akron and declare an emergency. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Anytime ODOT works inside the city limits, they require legislation to give them authorization. What this piece of legislation is they're going to be working on Vernomodum, Copley Road, Route 59, Wilbeth Road, and they're going to be replacing those signs at most of these are expressway entrances and exits. They upgrade their signs and their signage. There is no obligation to us financially. It's just giving them authorization to work in the city.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any questions or comments? Anyone online with us? All right, what's your pleasure on this one?
Consent.
Consent's fine, okay. I'll make the motion for consent.
Second.
All in favor for consent? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving into our third and final piece of the new agenda is ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with the Ohio Director of Transportation to construct noise walls along I-77 from Waterloo Road to Lovers Lane in the city of Akron and declare an emergency. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. That's exactly what they're doing. You could see some of the infrastructure already going in. They've set some foundations and they've set some of the posts. So they're going to be installing noise walls along that corridor in that ODOT project they're currently doing. So as you said, Councilman, from Lovers Lane all the way down to Waterloo Road, you did ask about some renderings. I will get those to you, or I'll get them to all council. They're going to do some renderings on those noise walls throughout the city.
Thank you, Chris. I just want to personally say thank you to you and the engineering department, because obviously I know, and you probably know, I've been working with them for the last few years in regards to this. We've actually sent out a lot of letters to a lot of the residents that live in that area, and some of the return feedback was, I don't want to say not good, but you know, they did not return their feedback. So it was a little process. Actually, I think it took longer than needed, but it's a good fit. I'm really happy that this is moving forward. So thank you, and tell them thank you, especially Christine Jonke and everybody else.
We appreciate that. You're right, Councilman. If any of you, or if we're going to be doing this in your ward or your neighborhood, when we send these out, we don't get a lot of feedback, and we've gone door to door. So in the future, we'll make sure, like we did with Councilman Kamer, we'll give him the notice so he can say it at the ward meeting. But unless you live on that, you know, you're not going to get the notice. So, but we've had a little bit of problem over on the Kenmore League, getting people to just return the notice. And I mean, it's a nice thing to have these sound walls. So whether you like them or not like them, at least return the survey, please.
Yeah, the survey. Yeah.
It doesn't cost us anything.
No, thank you for that. Any questions or comments from committee members? Anyone else in chambers, online? Okay. Is consent final? I'll make the motion for consent. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor for consent agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Before we adjourn, I just want to thank you and Jim Hall and everyone for all the emails in regards to the updates for snow and ice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good job. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Our next committee today will be the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are McKittrick, Kamer, Lombardo, Hanna, and Davis. Again, that's the Public Safety Committee, and we'll get started in just a moment here. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee to order, please. Since this is the first meeting with some new members, Clerk Viviano, if you could make a roll call, please.
McKittrick,
Here.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
Hannah. And Davis. All committee members are present.
Thank you. I'd like a motion to accept the meeting, previous meeting minutes, please.
I'll make that motion to accept the meeting
Second.
minutes from the previous meeting.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We have three pieces coming in. The first piece that's coming in today is authorizing the mayor as designee to enter in a contract without formally publicly advertising for bids with Summa Health to provide education and training necessary for fire division employees to achieve the required paramedic certification and declaring an emergency. So we have some members of the fire department here today. Chief Kaut, you want to present, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members, and it's nice to meet the new committee members. I am Deputy Chief Kaut, and I have with me today District Chief Todd Kelly. Wanted to bring him up and introduce him. He'll be taking over my former position, so you'll probably be seeing a lot more of him moving forward than myself. So, but this piece of legislation is, it's kind of new for legislation, but this is something that goes on every year. We have our employees who are not medics. They're required to become a paramedic, and so we send them through paramedic school either at Summa Health System or Cleveland Clinic, Akron General Medical Center. The reason this came to legislation is as we are trying to get more and more medics onto the job, hiring more, getting new medics, the tuition rose above the threshold of $50,000. So that's why we're here today for the approval to enter into this contract with Summa Health System. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Just a couple I have before I open it up to the rest of the committee. So we presently have a class in AGMC Akron or Cleveland Clinics program?
We have, yes, sir, we have a class of 23 at Cleveland Clinic currently, and this class at Summa will be a class of 8.
A class of 8, okay. And of the class that was hired, how many were already paramedics?
So the current class, we have 42 cadets that are currently going through training school, and 15 of those are paramedics.
Thank you. Any other committee members? Mr. Lombardo?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Kaut. So just help me understand, the 54,000 here is for the training class. Is that for the 42 plus 8 that you mentioned, or is it, how does that work?
So this one here in particular is just for Summa, that we have 8 currently in. So that's the tuition for the 8 students.
All 8 for that?
It's about close to $7,000 per student tuition for the school.
Okay. And then as we get more and more classes, it would be the same concept?
Yes.
Okay. And did we budget for 50,000?
We did.
Okay. And this was 54. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I will say, I will qualify that with, we're actually still in operating budget talks for operating budget right now. So it is part of the discussion.
True.
We haven't finalized that yet, but this will be part of our operating budget.
Well, it would seem that, being that you are our EMS service, the private companies are no longer. So it would seem like we would budget more because we want more paramedics.
We are budgeting enough every year to get more medics through. We'll probably come before you later on this year as we look to put about 18 in Cleveland Clinic's program, which starts at the end of August.
So anywhere between 100 and 150,000, I would think, would be in the budget.
Yes, it's a good ballpark.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other members?
Yes, I was just going to ask, how many classes are there annually? How many
Annually?
classes annually?
Good question. We have there are two classes. There's one at Akron General, Cleveland Clinic, Akron General, then there's also one at SUMA. Cleveland Clinic starts in September each year, and SUMA starts in January of each year. Now, one thing that Akron General did help us out this year with so many individuals, we had 23 individuals in their class, which would pretty much take up a whole class. So they actually developed two classes, a day class and an evening class, to accommodate our increased request of people going through. So they've been very helpful in helping us get as many people through as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks, Councilwoman. Anybody else? Online, Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. The first question has to do with the individuals who go to these classes. Do they self-select, or are they encouraged, or how are they chosen to be a part of the classes?
It is mandatory for anyone on the Akron Fire Department to become a paramedic. So basically, as a new class comes on, as soon as we can get them, as soon as they'll first need to achieve their EMT basic certification. Once they receive that, we will look to get them into class as soon as possible. So if there's not as many places available as we have candidates, we will go by a seniority basis to get them into class.
Okay, thank you very much. The second question I have, would any of this be covered by the levy that we passed a few years ago for police, fire, and roads? Does this include any training?
Yeah, our EMS fund, which we're currently budgeting for, part of our operating fund, which is separate, of course, from our general fund, this is where we will budget this tuition.
So that does come out of the levy, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions? Councilman Hanna?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. How many minorities are in both classes?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I could get that for you.
Okay, you don't have that number?
I do not have the number of, no, I do not have that off the top of my head.
Okay. So you'll get it to me?
I can get that for you.
Thank you so much.
And you're wanting how many are in the current classes?
Yes, it's in training now with SUMA, I think you said, and you said Akron General?
Sure.
Yes.
I'll get you those, that breakdown of, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Thanks, Chief. Linda Mobian, do you have another question?
It's just a request. Would you send that information to all of us, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. No other questions? Mr. Fesco? Chief, what's your pleasure?
Suspension, please.
Okay, could I get a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report, please?
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Chief. We'll get that out tonight.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a piece authorizing the mayor as designee without formality of advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts with the city of Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, for the use of its training center and firing range by the City of Akron Police Department and declaring an emergency. Captain McCosey.
Good afternoon, everyone. And for those that haven't met me yet, Captain McCosey, I'm more with the Services Subdivision. We oversee the budget, the paying of the bills. This piece is to allow us to enter into a contract for use in the Cuyahoga Falls Police Department range. It allows us to go for both our academy folks as we get started with our next academy, as well as general department training. They provide us with the best rates that we can get for use of the range. It's an indoor range. They have environmental controls there that are second to none, so it's safe for us to use it. And it's considerable savings over going outside at Summit County. So while we still will use Summit County, we use Colorado Falls where we can, and they are much more convenient for us to use.
Thanks, Chief. I have a question. So you said you'd still do use Summit County's range as well? So is Cuyahoga Falls range an outdoor range?
Cuyahoga Falls is an indoor range, and they also have, it's a training building, so they also have a couple of classrooms, which are going to be important for some of our training this year, especially when we're dealing with the new classes. A portion of the training is in the classroom, and a portion is in the range, so it allows us to use both. Summit County does not. We have a smaller facility. We have a trailer out there that we can use, but with the indoor range, we're not dealing with the weather and the other conditions that can become variables that make it difficult as the new guys are coming through the class.
Do you still have any contractor use the range at the University of Akron anymore?
It is still available to us. We do not use it for a variety of reasons, and one of those is just scheduling is just much easier with Cuyahoga Falls. We also, and like I said, we use Summit County, and there's another range down in Canton that they use sporadically, and that's really, we pay as we go on that one.
Okay, thanks very much. Any committee members have any questions? Anybody online? Any other members in chambers? What's your pleasure?
We would request suspension on this.
Can I get a motion, please?
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Captain. We'll get that through tonight. Okay, we have another piece that's a resolution that was brought in by Councilman Garrett. And the resolution, 2024 through January 26, 2020.
And neither one of these was in my particular ward per se, but that really gets to the point of the seriousness of it. Although it hasn't happened to one of you guys here on council today, there's over 633, my last report from the police department, of individuals shot here in Akron. Moms Demand Action, Ms. Joyce has reached out to me and has championed this cause. With over 76,000 people shot in America and another 43,000 of them killed through gun violence, it is the impact that the family members suffer. An individual shot, and now that family member has to care for that kid who now is paralyzed. And this is just bringing focus to this area. Mental health is real, and a lot of these folks are being able to then get the mental health services that they need, whether it's through the ADM board or whether it's through Empower, Kindred Care, or Minority Health. It is a real scenario, things that are happening here in our community. So I would just hope, Chairman, that this is adopted by my colleagues, just to see the importance of it, and just hoping that it'll pass. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Councilman. Any committee members have any questions or comments? Councilwoman Davis, please.
Mr. Garrett, you said 633, what time period?
That was in 2023, and that was, just to give you the exact here, that was firearms, that was discharge firearms, felony assaults with the firearm, murders with the firearm, and that was in 2023. I have the actual breakdown. Last year, there was 619. This year, in 2023, it's 633. And I also have it broken down by the month as well. In addition to that, there are 5 major areas in the city of Akron that are experiencing gun violence, and I'll share this with you. And in those 5 areas, you're looking at wards 3, 4, and 5. Wards 3, 4, and 5. And so I'm really concerned about that. And as I move citywide, as the at-large council person, I'm not just interested in what's going on in one particular area. Although it hasn't really been a big deal in Ward 8, or some of the bigger Ward 8, Ward 6, Ward 7, it's really hitting in 3, 4, and 5. And I really want to spotlight and bring this to the forefront. Hopefully we can get some attention to this area.
Thank you, and I have another comment. And I agree with that because I have relatives that have experienced gun violence and death. I have a 3-year-old great-grandson, 4-year-old. His father was shot 17 times and murdered 2 years ago. Wow. So we often forget about the children of the gun victims, okay? And there are many. And my children grew up without a father because he died from being ill, not from gun violence. Not until they were adults did I realize the impact that it had on them. So I think that is something that we should have serious discussion about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other committee members have any questions or comments? Any in council chambers? Councilwoman Amobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had my hand up for something else, but I certainly would like to speak on this. Thank you, Mr. Garrett, for bringing this to our attention. And I love the fact that you have the breakdown. So I hope you can share this with all of us. I'm assuming that this week was chosen by mothers demanding or on demand, or is it a national week?
Thank you. It was Ms. Joyce with Moms Demand Action. In addition to that, it is a national agenda.
Yeah, and I'm certain this evening, Mr. Chair, that we would probably like for mayor and council as a whole to support this resolution because this is one of those areas that we really hope to focus on as a city. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Fusco, do you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Looking through the CDC and other statistics, what was brought up by Councilwoman Davis and also the sponsor is that, between 2019 and 2021 was the largest increase in firearm-related homicides is Black children. And that's where the children, the child piece of this is now surpassed car accidents for children in terms of the most deaths. And so, no, I agree that this is obviously a tremendous problem. We're somewhat hamstrung, as I'm sure all the new ones here, as well as the ones who are more veteran, are aware in terms of what we can do referencing these guns. It's a state and federal, especially on the federal side, but a state issue as well. We have a state where there's no longer required training. We have a state where you could carry a gun in, almost anywhere within our state, and we have spoken through resolutions over the years and asked our state and federal governments to do something, and it's extremely frustrating what we have to, how we deal with this and continue to deal with this without reasonable, sensible gun regulations, just sensible. And we just don't have that. And there seems to be no desire whatsoever. It seems as though nowadays you turn on the news and the United States has become used to seeing these mass shootings. And it's extremely frustrating, but I do rise in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Anybody else have any comments or questions? What's your pleasure, Councilman Garrett?
My pleasure is to have the suspension of the rules declared emergency.
Can I get a motion for that from the committee?
Yeah, I'll make that motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks all. We have nothing further to come before us. We'll be adjourned.
Capital Budget Review will begin at 3:30. Thank you.